Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Black Excellence Town Hall here at Archbishop Molloy High School via Zoom, like we do everything these days. First of all, I'd like to say that this event would not be possible without the tremendous dedication and hard work of many, many people. I want to thank first Ms. Tenisha McDonald, the moderator of today's panel discussion, all the panelists we have, our Diversity and Inclusion Council, the Molloy administration, our wonderful IT team, the best in the city, and all of you who are attending today. In a few minutes, you'll hear members of our Molloy community speak about their educational and professional journeys and Black identity. First, they will answer a series of pre-selected questions designed to provide you all with a great combination of information, first-person experience, commentary, and reflection. We truly feel that the upcoming discussion will be informational, thought-provoking, and inspirational. Before I introduce Ms. McDonald, I want to give a little bit of information about how the structure of today's town hall will work. To encourage the free flow of dialogue from all panelists, all other participants will be muted. After the panel has answered the pre-selected questions, you will have an opportunity to ask any questions you wish via the chat feature in Zoom. Simply type in your question, and Ms. McDonald will work to assign it to the best panelist or panelists to answer. If we cannot get to your question, we will make every attempt to provide a response in the upcoming weeks. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Tenisha McDonald. Ms. McDonald is an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and, if she wasn't busy enough, a doctoral student at Princeton University. She's also worked countless hours to organize, cultivate, and found the Diversity and Inclusion Council, and currently serves as its chair. She will be our host and moderator today, and we'll start the town hall by introducing all our panelists. So, without further ado, Ms. McDonald, take it away.
Thank you, Darius. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to welcome you all on behalf of the D&I Council to our first Molloy event, Black Excellence Town Hall, which invites us to think about how Blackness and Black identity function in our career paths and inform our everyday lives. Before we move on to introductions, one of our panel members, Edwidge, wanted me to share that he'll be joining us a little later in the program because he's getting his vaccination, which is very important. I want to begin with moderator and panelist introductions. We'll tell our viewers a bit about ourselves and our profession, and we'll briefly answer the question, what does Black excellence mean to me? So I'll begin and then I'll call on each of you to speak. Sounds good? Okay. So my name is Tenisha McDonald. I serve as chair of the D&I Council, and I'm founder of Writers Inc. NYC. I'm currently a second year English PhD student at Princeton. I have two areas of research. The first is for my dissertation, which focuses on 19th century women's slave narratives, particularly in the US and the Caribbean, and how these women constitute and articulate their own means of wellness. My second area of research involves undisciplining or diversifying the white supremacy of Victorian poetry. I'm working with a professor to design an undergraduate course that takes a more transatlantic and transnational approach to what we call Victorian poetry. When I think about what Black excellence means to me, I'm drawn to a brief poem by one of my favorite poets, Lucille Clifton, that I'll share with you all. And let me see if this group chat works. Okay, I sent a link to the poem in the group chat, and it's entitled, "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So for me as a Black woman, Black excellence means making the most out of the resources in which I'm provided and shaping and stepping into the fullness of my own Black identity and celebrating it, while also navigating the obstacles that arise because of that celebration. In acknowledging those obstacles, I want this platform to be a safe space for panelists to discuss their successes and also what they've had to overcome in order to be the person that they are today. So with that being said, I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll begin with Elder Brother Damani Nyahuma. Damani, are you there? Okay, we'll come back to Damani. Let's try Shaina Wiel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shaina Wiel. I see some of my old teachers in here, so good to see you again after 20-something years. I am a 2004 graduate of Molloy, and currently I own a business called Minorities in Sports Business Network. We are a national networking org for people of color who work in sports. We house over 1,000 professionals of color who work in the sports industry, but my background is in sports marketing. I've worked everywhere from ESPN to the Nets to different agencies, including like talent representation agencies, some media agencies. And then on the side, I also teach, I'll be teaching sports marketing, but I did teach sports communications at Georgetown University. So I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys. I decided I wanted to work in sports, and I'm not sure, I don't think Mr. Nicholas is there anymore, but in his history class, I decided that's what I wanted to do. So Molloy is a big reason why I'm in the industry that I am in today. So great to meet all of you.
Thank you, Shaina. Damani?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I had a little technical glitch. Happy to be back. So again, my name is Elder Brother Damani Nyahuma, and when we were asked to, give our titles and whatnot, some of you may have seen the flyer that was generated for the program. I wanted to differentiate between who I am and what I am. So who I am is Elder Brother. I'm an ordained elder within the Presbyterian Church of America. Essentially, elders of the Presbyterian Church are charged to ensure that the covenant relationship between Christ and the believers is nurtured and cultivated and maintained. And we have oversight over the governance of our various church institutions. So that's elder. Brother is a title that I earned essentially through my community endeavors over the course of the last 25 to 30 years. I've just been in the community, working with young people, working with families and various capacities. So in my community, when someone refers to you as brother, it's a designation of trust and respect that you are given because of how the people feel about you. So that's who I am. And what I am, I've been working in law enforcement for the past 28 years, currently a sergeant in Queens Supreme Criminal Court. I've been there since 2014. And so I walk this line of being both Black and blue. And sometimes those things clash and there are issues therein, but that's the line that I walk. And so I try to incorporate who I am into what I am insofar as my career is concerned. Insofar as Black excellence is concerned, Black excellence to me simply means honoring the legacy of my foreparents. My maternal and paternal families are traceable in America literally for over 200 years. My family has been here. We hail from the deep South, Mississippi and Alabama, So we've come through the whole gamut of slavery and Jim Crow and legal segregation and all that entails. So I owe something to my forebearers to be excellent in all that I endeavored to do, because so much sacrifice was had just for me to be on this Zoom. There was sacrifice. So that's what excellence means to me: maintain the legacy of my foreparents. Thank you.
I was going to say, I didn't include that point, but really quickly, I'd say what Black excellence means to me is being able to be your whole self at all times. And you reach a point where you're going to be your full Black self, no matter where you are, what room you're in. Right before you all came on the call, we were talking about wearing hoop earrings. And I said, I'm, a Queens girl at heart. So being able to walk into a meeting with the NBA and sit with C-suite level people and still have my hoop earrings on and my baby hair is popping, that's what Black excellence means to me. So.
Thank you, Shaina and Damani. Next, we have Angelina Waterman.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a 2007 alum, and I graduated. After I graduated, I pursued volleyball and studied psychology at American University. I continued that athletic path, playing professionally, and my volleyball career actually started when I was at Molloy, as did my passion to work in the field of psychology. And it's a pleasure to be able to be here today and just kind of share that, as a lot of the things that I was able to embark on did start at Molloy. And what I do now is I practice behavior analysis, and I'm currently practicing in the state of California. And I've been doing that for over 8 years. And as it is truly my passion, a lot of people don't know what behavior analysis is, but essentially what that is understanding why people do the things they do. And I vividly remember being in a psychology class at Molloy, asking that same question. And here I am today doing what I love. And what Black excellence is to me is what empowers myself as a Black woman, and seeing the excellence in the things that myself and just Black people do every day. Superior, everyday things, just the way that we walk and talk and just exist in the world is truly what I believe should be praised as being excellent and superior.
Thank you, Angie. Next, we have Janelle Boyd.
Hello, everyone. I graduated 2009, and before I start, I have to just shout out Coach Lou, who I love so much. Hey, Coach. I see a lot of my past teachers here. So after graduating, I went on to Cornell, and then I went into corporate America as a staffing manager for Robert Half International. And most recently, I've started my own company. I've always done public speaking, but now that is what I do. And I had the privilege of speaking internationally at the United Nations, conferences, churches, schools. I love it. I have my own organization that empowers young women. I'm also a minister. My dad's a pastor, so I do that as well. And I'm all about empowerment and just sharing that hope with people and sharing my life with others so they don't have to make the mistakes I made. And just, as someone told me that what you give to others should collapse time, right? The service you give. And so that's what I hope to do for youth, but Black excellence to me would be excellence. When I looked it up, it was like just to rise above, right? So I don't think it has to be anything extraordinary, kind of like what Angelina said before me. It is just being great in whatever you're doing. If you're making pottery, then you're putting your best foot forward and you care about the details. If you're in class, if you're in sports, you are just being the best that you can be as a Black person, because I heard a talk most recently from Gia Peppers, and she said to stand in your light. And I realized that when you stand in your light, you give other people the permission to stand in theirs. And so I think that's why Black excellence is so important, because when I see someone that represents me, that I can identify with, excel, it tells me I can too. So, yeah.
Thank you, Janelle. And Edwidge is here. So Edwidge, I'm not sure if you were, for how long you were here, but if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and then also what Black excellence means to you.
Yes, hopefully everybody could hear me. Apologize for the mask, and I'm actually in the hospital right now. I just got my second vaccine, so I may turn off my video for a second because I'm going to walk to my car. I won't be in here. But first and foremost, I'd like to everybody for allowing me to be here. I wanted to, regardless I was taking the vaccine, I wanted to make sure that I was part of the panel and provided as much input and my efforts as much as I could. Currently, I am the director of admissions at Molloy High School, as well as I'm the assistant coach for the varsity basketball. Just Black excellence means to me, similar to what Damani said, is my meaning is really paying homage to your forefathers, your ancestors, and those who have provided you an opportunity to also succeed. I always look at my biggest role model, which was my father. In his own right, he was very successful. He left Haiti, was already a dentist in Haiti, and had to come to the United States to study dentistry again, just so that he could practice. And he put his kids through college, and he was a really great father. So I look at that as an example of Black excellence and being able to really overcome a lot of different obstacles. So in order for you to really be to show that and pay homage to that, I believe Black excellence really encompasses that idea of wanting to not only provide for your family and for your kids more than what you have for yourself, but being able to stand with those giants that have been so successful throughout our history, being able to identify with those people that look just like you, and being able to say that I also succeeded, I also achieved, and you left a mark on this world. That's what Black excellence is. I think it's important for us to recognize the accomplishments of the people of color, and all for people for that matter. But definitely, it's important for me to see somebody, just like Janelle mentioned, being able to see somebody in the position that you may want to be in, and know that it's possible.
Thank you for sharing that, Edwidge, and for joining us from the hospital. We're still working on getting Roz in. She's having some technical difficulties, but I just plan on catching her up as soon as she's able to enter. But we're going to move right into questions for our panelists. We have a few prepared questions. And the first set goes to Angelina and then Janelle. So the question is, how has race impacted your professional journeys? What role did mentorship play when you first began pursuing your career? And what role does it play for you now?
Okay, thank you, Tenisha. So I have always thought about my race. To this day, I think it's something that is always at the forefront with the things that I do. Professionally, it's been at the forefront in decisions that I've made academically, and even thinking as far back as my time as an athlete at Molloy and in college and professionally, I thought about it as well. And the reality is that I choose to be positive about it. I choose to embrace it and celebrate it as my born identity. And although there may be times where that's not easy, it's important for me to be seen as a Black woman. And that's a driving factor for why I have chosen to do the things that I do and make the decisions that I make. when I was studying psychology, when I decided to pursue my master's and study clinical psychology, I was surprised that when I walked into the classroom with my cohort, that it was about 50% Black students, men and women. And it's crazy to think that that's a surprise. My previous time in academics, I have not seen that abundant, 50% is not that high of a number, but that was a lot for me to see so many faces that look like me. And that was amazing. Pursuing that made me realize that this should not just be, I know this is not just my experience, but this should happen more often. And working as a behavior analysis, I am in a predominantly white field, and being able to bring the face of celebration of excellence, of Black excellence to that field is really what motivates me to want to be a part of the field that I chose. And I continue to do that through mentoring myself, being a mentor myself, and also just deciding and being here with you guys. So I know that when my professor mentioned something in class, that we don't work in the field of psychology for money, we do it to make a change, we do it to improve lives. And for me, I knew that working in this field, the Black representation is so important. And being able to hear that from teachers and seeing that in my classroom, that this is where I need to be. We need to have our faces out here. In the Black community growing up, I did not see a lot of faces or hear about psychologists or people working in the mental health industry or working in that field. So that's really important for me to, be this face that it is now.
Thank you, Angie. You're right. Representation is super, super important. And I like that you highlighted that your positivity going into your career is a choice, because it is.
Yes. So I want to start out with painting a picture for you, okay? Because I think that sometimes it is hard to, I'm gonna tell the story first and explain. Okay, so it was my first time ever being international in speaking. I spoke at a UN gala, and the women we are honoring, they asked us to come to their country. She's like, I'm so moved by this girl, Janelle. I want her to come speak to my people. It's like an independence celebration. So I'm like, I don't even have a passport at this point, and we leave in 2 weeks, right? So they do their UN stuff. I get it really quickly, and we get first class flights. I get off the plane, people playing bongo. I'm in Africa. Sorry, missed that part. We are in Equatorial New Guinea. People are playing the bongos after a long flight. I'm looking busted. I didn't get my head together yet, but I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Cameras are coming in. They're interviewing. An escort comes in. They bring us to a hotel. It is just it's happening fast. And it's wow. I remember it's the day of the independence, right? And the stage is full with important people, delegates. Some are in African garb, others in military attire. Then the people from surrounding countries, the king and queen, or the president, first lady, I don't know what they call it in different countries, but one person has a lion on his back, another is in military attire, another one's in African garb. And I pan around to the most important people, and guess what? They look like me. The first time in my life that I walked into a room where the people in power looked like me. And I sat there. And my eyes started to water. I would have fully cried, but my lashes would have came off, and I didn't want that. So I was put it together. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And now, and the people who were, were white were the people serving me, security. Now this is bizarre to me, right? I'm from America. We don't see this. That's when I came back to America and realized that the idea that I wasn't enough was in my head. And media and other things were perpetuating that. And it really hit me because my dad's a pastor. Being a pastor is a very culturally Black thing. My church is predominantly Black. The middle school and elementary school I went to, predominantly Black. And then I started to play softball. And I was really good at it. And that's how I came to Molloy. Coach Lou, he recruited me. But guess what? It wasn't a lot of Black people. So now I'm on a team for the first time and I'm a minority. And unfortunately, I wasn't used to being around them. They wasn't used to being around me. So ignorant things started to fly, right? Whether like, for example, oh my God, we want a nickname. Can we call you Angelina, right? And you're like, oh my God, I know you don't mean to hurt my feelings, but like that is culturally not okay, right? But then you learn how to navigate through that by teaching your peers and making them more sensitive to who you are and what your culture is. And then I get chances to speak in front of my peers and speak at mass, and we get to know each other more and it gets more comfortable. Then I go to Cornell. Again, I'm a minority. I played softball at Cornell. I was the only Black girl in the entire Ivy League softball. That was a whole thing. I could realize they wasn't used to being around me. I wasn't used to being around them. Then I went to Robert Half. I was the only Black girl in the entire region. Again, I'm like, okay, but I realize that the higher I go, the less I see of me. And so what I realized and I had to learn to do, and I want to share this with every Black person listening on Minority, and actually this is for anyone, find your advocate, find your sponsor. For me at Molloy, it was Coach Lou. He helped me navigate the terrain. Janelle, do this, when I was confused, when I felt like I didn't know how to stand up, when I felt like I didn't understand, he helped me. And then as you go on,
Is it frozen on everyone's end?
Yes.
others will help. Oh, did it come
Janelle,
back?
you're going in and out.
I am. Still?
Now I can hear you. You're good.
Okay. So did you hear when I said Tanisha's the one who, so when I came to Cornell, the first person who was like, let me give you the terrain, it was Tanisha. So she helped me get into the Black community and like find my footing. And so then there were other student advisors who were Black women like Renee Alexander, Theoria, who like helped me. And then when I got to corporate America, it was a Black manager. And he helped me navigate. And guess what? And in that place, he brought my name to leadership. My name was happening in places where I was not. And so it is no secret. And being Black and working in excellence when you are not the majority is tough because they're not used to being around me and I'm not used to being around them. And they have these stereotypes and these ideas of who I am and what I do. You know, I remember one of the things that was taught to me in corporate America was you can't do what they do, right? They're non-Black, non-minority, right? They would like sit on desks because they're very young like environment, the people, and they would say slang words and rap lyrics. And one time I just said, I got you. And they said, oh, she's ghetto, right? And it seems unfair. You're like, but the problem was that that's what they already thought about me. And I had just like solidified it. And you don't think about that when it's another race. So those are the micro things that you have to just deal with and you have to like step above. The truth is you can't be comfortable. Like, when happy hour came, that's not my time to hang out. Like, that's just, you're still on the clock. You're still being professional. You're still showing them that I can be a manager. I can run a division, right? And so those are some of the things that I had to endure and overcome. And it's mentorship. It is finding someone who's your advocate, who's your sponsor, who's going to guide you and lead you. And then always making sure you don't waste their time. If someone takes the time to show you the way, you make it count. You work harder than anybody else and you own it. And now how does that affect me is I pay that forward. I know that if I'm ever in a space and I see someone who looks like me, I'm going to reach out and do my part to help you navigate where you are to give you the best opportunity to succeed.
Thank you, Janelle. That was really powerful. And I especially love how you highlight paying it forward. That's so important to solidifying, your sense of community, and then also bringing the people that are coming up behind you into that community so that they have that sense of support. We have Roz. Yay. So Roz, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and just give a quick introduction.
Hey guys, what's up? Thank you, Tenisha. And thank you all for having me. I'm so glad I finally got in. For the last 30 minutes. I've been trying to figure out how to sign in properly. So I'm really glad it worked out. And to be here with all of you. My name is Roz Gold-Onwude. I'm Molloy class of 05, am I? And that's how you know it's getting up there. I was a student there. I played on the girls basketball team, and now I continue to like live around and work around basketball. I'm a sports broadcaster for ESPN and the Boardroom. And I cover a lot of hoops, men's, women's, and also sports business. I also know we talked about Black excellence. So I'll quickly say what Black excellence is to me. It is our stories, it's our heritage, it's our legacy. Black excellence is everyone that was before us, all Black people, the struggle, the regality of cultures coming from Africa and the beyond, the struggles of slavery in America, the growth to where we are now. It is our hair, it's our culture, it's our rhythm, it's our music, it's the way we thrive and live together, it's our food, it's our kickbacks, and it's us together. I think Black excellence is us working with each other and building each other up and moving as a collective group higher. And I think Black excellence is really achieved when we don't see Blackness as a weakness, but rather as our advantage and something to wear with pride.
Thank you, Roz. We're happy that you were able to join us.
I felt so old. I was like, oh my God, am I one of those people who can't figure out technology? Like, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening. But we're just gonna keep the program rolling. Our next question is for Damani and Shaina. Based on your personal experiences, what resources do you feel are necessary in Black communities in order to gain more professional opportunities? What should businesses and institutions do to provide more support to Black professionals?
Who's first?
You can start off, Damani.
Okay. Well, first thing I want to say, just in terms of the question itself, oftentimes when we think about and we hear the terms, Black communities and resources, we think of Black communities as some kind of monolith, as if all Black communities are resource poor and need greater allocation. And what we need to understand is that, Black communities are like, Black people are like any other people. We have our various socioeconomic and educational lines of demarcation. And so, what might be relevant in one, sector of a Black community may not be as relevant in another. So we have to I just want to preface it, by saying that, because it's something, I've had experiences, being in school, being in college, where, as was said earlier, people have certain predisposed ideas, about who you are. I can remember being in college and some teammates, white, driving me home. And as we get off the Belt Parkway, it's like 90 degrees, and my teammate starts rolling up his window, and I can see he's kind of looking around, and I just felt his uncomfortableness as we were kind of rolling into Laurelton, Queens, which, if is, one of those communities where your first Black homeowners, house, car, 2.5 kids, fence, etc. And so as we kind of rolled up in front of my house, I saw his expression kind of change, and it was like, "You live here?" And it was unspoken. We didn't talk about it, but I felt it. I had experienced it before. I knew what he was going through, and I also knew where he lived, So it was a little, I guess, disconcerting for him the way I lived relative to the way he lived. But his image of me was shattered, in that moment, when he saw something that he did not expect. So I just want to start with that. But in terms of resources, the resources that are most readily needed, and let's just talk about underserved communities. That's what I'm focusing on. People resources. That, we have, people think of resources, they think financial, they think money, they think physical and material things. What is needed in the underserved community are people of the right consciousness, people with the right attitudes to come in and try to be empathetic and understand the plight, the condition, the situation, the history, the social construct of the people in that given community, and make a determination as to what it is they can do to be helpful. So we talk a lot about mentoring, it's huge, but unless you have people that are willing to kind of detach themselves, you can't help the hood from outside the hood. You have to go in, you have to connect, you have to rub your elbows. I need you on Merrick Boulevard. I need you on Farmers. I need you to come where people are and try to understand, their why, because everyone has a why. That young person who, I've been working in criminal justice, for a long time, working with, felony offender youths and whatnot. And what we need to understand is that kid came out of somebody's house. That young man, that young woman did not just end up on the corner. They weren't birthed onto the corner. There are circumstances and dynamics. We can talk about it, but that's a longer discussion, in terms of some of the institutional things that have created an impediment to people's upliftance. So we need people to come in and, like I think Angelina mentioned earlier, not thinking about being a behavioral psychologist and not being exposed to people, in that field. And so we need folks who are in fields and have whatever your professions are, whatever your endeavors are, come into the community and connect with young people. That 10 minutes, that 5 minutes that you spend giving a speech, talking to some Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or a Little League team about who you are and what you do, trust me, I've been working with young folks a long time. They're listening, they hear you. And insofar as what, companies, corporations, institutions can do to provide support, well, understand me, see me. Sometimes you hear whites will say things like, I don't see color. I don't care whether you're white, black, blue, purple, etc. And I always say, no. I want you to see me as a black man. I need you to see me and understand me in the skin that I'm in, because I'm comfortable in that skin. And if you detach me from my blackness, then you can't see me. You can't see the me that makes me me. You don't understand my experience, my culture, my history. So people need to, wrap their minds around the fact that, yes, there are divisions, most of which we put in our own ways, right? And we have to kind of make the attempt, to kind of tear the walls down. I have a cousin, and I'll end on this. He's 30 years old. He lives in Houston, Texas. He's the only one in the division of the insurance company that he works in. And so he had a supervisor come to him, and, she was saying some things to him about his work product that were wrong. He had done other than what she had thought. And then she ended by saying, well, you seem kind of defensive. Well, he wanted to respond, but he understands the stigma associated with being a black man in a white dominated field. And once she said to him, you're defensive. And he's thinking to himself, I didn't even say anything. His facial expression was rooted in the fact that she was wrong about what she was saying. So I had to explain to him that being defensive, it doesn't mean that defensive doesn't mean that you cannot say when someone is wrong. If someone is placing something upon you that is incorrect, that is false, you have the right to defend yourself. But because of him being in this, white dominated dynamic and her predisposed mindset about a black man, he kind of took it, and he allowed her to basically defame and mischaracterize his work ethic because he was afraid to respond. So what can institutions do? See me, understand me, make an attempt. Let's talk, empathize, sympathize, and I'll understand some of your limitations, because I know, like as was said earlier, Janelle mentioned, you're not used to me and I'm not used to you. So to the extent that we actually understand that, and make an attempt to break down the walls, that is the type of support that we need when we go into these non-traditional, or however you characterize these institutions, where we're not readily seen. Try to know me, try to understand me, and we can get somewhere. That's it.
Thank you, Damani. Shaina?
Follow up on Damani's point and start off with, what can companies and institutions do? This is going to sound a little harsh, but I need to be realistic, is just stop being lazy, right? Like, we can't keep going to the same circles when we're looking for diverse talent, right? If you were a company and the only people that you go to are your frat brothers from college, their kids, or if you were in some club in college, or maybe, your golf retreat or whoever, you're going to keep getting the same people who are coming in for these roles. So look outside of that. I sit with a lot of different businesses in the sports industry, and I sit with a lot of senior people. And I remember I keep getting this line of like, but people of color, Black people, Hispanic people just aren't applying. And they're not applying for these senior roles. They're not applying for VP roles or SVP roles. And I'm like, that's a lie. Who is being the gatekeeper of your application process, right? Like, so when you get these resumes that you're only seeing somehow white people apply for these, like, who is sending you these resumes? Maybe you need to have a talk with them to figure out how they're filtering who is, who can do this job and who can't. So that's my very, very simple answer to that. It's just like, go outside of your comfort zone and look at different communities, look at different avenues, go outside of just your circle and look for different people. Because we're here, we're applying for those roles. I would love to be an SVP making $500,000 a year. I'm applying to those roles and I'm qualified, more than qualified. So, hire me. I would say, as it pertains to people, and I'll speak directly to the students here, is, seek out opportunities and take risks. Get out of your comfort zone too, right? Because I work with a lot of college students, and I have a lot of college students come up to me and say they want to work in sports. But to them, they're just like, I want to work in basketball. I only want to work at the NBA. Or I want to work at the NFL, or I want to be a sports agent. And, there'll be times where I'll provide an opportunity from the PGA Tour. They're looking for a marketing intern. And automatically, they don't want to even apply to that role because it's not, sexy to them. They're waiting for a marketing internship at the NBA. And so what I always try to instill in my students is like, get out of your comfort zone. Like, no, you may not know the golf world, but you can get some really dope, great experience working at the PGA Tour. You'll be able to travel the country and meet some amazing people while you're doing that. So I'll definitely say, get out of your comfort zone. Don't only just subscribe to what you think your dream role is and just stay pigeonholed and tunnel vision to that, because you're going to miss a lot of opportunities that come your way. I wrote some notes. I would say also, like, seek out different opportunities and take advantage of your resources. And like Damani was saying, when we think resources, we just think like very tangible things that we can put our hand on, right? It's not always like that. Molloy is a resource to you. The type of students that go to Molloy are students that are going to be successful. Their parents are most likely. So when we talked about mentoring earlier, when we're talking about mentorship, that doesn't just mean let me go find the CEO of a company and ask him to be my mentor. Mentor laterally. The people on this call who are your friends that you're texting right now, those, we don't know where they're going to be in 5 years, right? And I'll say, like, even Roz and I went to high school together. We didn't know where we were going to be now 10, 15 years later, right? Like, we had no idea we would be in these spaces, but Roz and I actually work a lot together. I'll provide opportunities for her. She'll sit on panels for me, and we'll help each other out in our own careers. So you don't know where each other's going to be. I know when I talk to my girls in my group chat and we're talking about salaries, we're being very honest with salaries. Like, okay, I just got offered this. How can I negotiate this? What can I do here? I want to make more money. So we're helping each other out. And that is a form of a resource, right? Because had I not had this group chat, I would have been making considerably less money than what I got. So definitely, look to each other, mentor each other laterally. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is to really just take risks, get out of your comfort zone. If it's something that you may not be familiar with, some of the best jobs that I had were jobs that I had no idea what that company was in the beginning, right? Like I worked at ESPN. I thought ESPN was gonna be my dream job. I'd be there forever. ESPN was one of the jobs that I disliked the most because I got there, ESPN is a machine. Everybody does their job. I didn't get to do anything cool as like an entry-level person. I was sitting at my desk working on spreadsheets for a year, right? But I worked for a smaller company that I wasn't as familiar with, that worked on different projects that weren't as sexy as what I thought sports was. And I was able to learn so much. I was able to get my hands wet in a lot. I was able to go to all these cool different events and meet all these cool different people because I just took a risk and I was like, okay, I don't know what this company is, but they have a job that I think I might like, I'm gonna go there. So as you're looking for internships or looking for different opportunities. I know you're still in high school, but these are things that you should start thinking of when you're going to college, as you're looking for different opportunities. Don't just stay pigeonholed on what you think you want to do or what you think you may be good at, because that's all you know. Like, kind of go outside of your comfort zone and try different things.
Thank you, Damani and Shaina, for highlighting the importance of actually seeing color and also encouraging students to get out of their comfort zones, which is super important. I'm going to transition to our last panel question, which is for Edwidge and then Roz. How do you reconcile your personal and professional identities? Can you specify moments when they've been in sync? Have there been times when one identity conflicts with the other? How do you celebrate your identity as a Black professional? So first Edwidge and then Roz.
Actually, I've it's funny. This is one of those things that I try to stay grounded on, is remaining who I am without compromising myself in whether in a professional setting. And I think I've successfully done that throughout my life. Just to give some background, I've worked in universities for the latter part of my career, and Molloy is going to the high school level is the first time that I've worked at a high school. But I think as I've grown over time, it's become easier for me to be my authentic self and still remain professional, because to keep it very candid, oftentimes we have this thing that students, there's more directed to the students, because us as adults kind of know what this is, like code switching and kind of basically and for lack of a better word, acting white, as the way people sometimes want to perceive it, acting white or being professional
Edwidge, you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to move my camera in. Well, I hope that you heard what I said. Like, acting white doesn't mean that you're acting professional, which is it's a misconception that a lot of our people of color sometimes at a young age, they kind of make the mistake of what that is. Being professional is just being that, using professional decorum, dressing in a certain way. It's just being professional. It's not acting outside of what you are. And I think that you can really do that if you accept that. If you continue to think about it from a perspective of where you have to put on a show in order to kind of be your authentic self and kind of to deliver that this is who I am, but I'm still the professional person in whatever setting, I think people make the mistake of that. And that's what I think that I've come into understanding throughout my career and throughout my life, that I don't have to compromise being fun-loving, being sometimes a kid at heart, dressing a certain way because I'm in fear of not being professional or losing my own identity. And I oftentimes say it's one of the examples that my father kind of taught me. It's the best example is how I show up for our basketball games or our open house. Not to kind of pat myself on the back, but I put myself in a position where I'm always as professionally dressed as possible, whether I'm in a Nike tech suit or I'm in a full suit, shirt and tie, etc. And I don't make that mistake of changing my identity, because my identity is of a Black man that wants to put his best foot forward, and I like to dress very well. Whether that has me, for some that are familiar with being in fraternities and sororities, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and the stigmatism is that we're very well dressed, very well groomed, men. Not because of that, but because I was taught to always put your best foot forward, so that you are just looked at and recognized as that. So again, whether I'm wearing sweatpants, I'm gonna wear the nicest sweatpants I can. If I'm wearing a suit, I'm gonna wear the nicest suit I can, because I always want to be known as somebody that is well dressed, well groomed, is always clean, is always putting this best foot forward, and that's my identity, as opposed to, oh, I'm trying to make myself look good for the white crowd, or I got to go into this meeting dressed to the nines because I'm in a meeting full of white people, or etc. I think you just need to try to change your perspective sometimes of how you approach your identity, and recognize that you can still be yourself without having to compromise who you are.
Thank you, Edwidge. Roz?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, when we talk about like the duality of who we are, our Blackness in our professional and personal lives, I think that there's a line most Black people have walked. Black people, mixed race people, there's this understanding of like, who am I in all these different spaces? Identity is important. First and foremost, I want to say that it's important for the space that you're in to feel like a space that's safe to be yourself. That's why, having a conversation like this is important, because you might want to be the best, be yourself, but you might be afraid to, or you may not know that it's okay to, or you may feel that you're going to get judged, or that it'll hold you back to be truly who you are, or to express your Blackness. And like, I think about my time at Molloy. I had a great experience, and I made great friends. I never really dealt with anything in my track where my race was held against me, or anything negative came from it. But I can't say that at the time that I was coming up that I knew it was something to celebrate. And so I'm so glad, not only in Molloy, but I just think in my industry, in sports media, in many businesses right now around the country, I think that this openness, this awareness, this willing to have this conversation and listen, and not have it just be a Black conversation, that people of all races are part of this conversation, because that's important to the inclusiveness of the stories and the experiences we're sharing. I think that's really key, that it feels safe to be me. And I would say my journey of really stepping into myself as a woman and as a Black woman, I think it naturally comes with age and experience, finding myself. And I really feel like for me, with who am I, how do I express my Blackness in my personal life versus my professional life? I feel like, and also as a woman in sports business too, so often early as I was coming up, people tried to suppress that. They wanted you to fit in. They wanted you to sound a certain way, look a certain way, not bring attention to the fact that you're a woman in a male dominated space, or that you're Black, in a high profile position. And that was never set up. That never set me up properly to truly thrive and succeed. And I've just fully decided at this point of my life and of my career that I will not hide who I am. And I feel like the best success in my life so far has come when I've leaned in on my identity, because who I am is what's separating me. And trying to pretend or hide or sound a certain way, look a certain way, muted me. And our peers who are not minorities, who are not Black, who are not females in male-dominated spaces, don't have to walk with that burden, don't have to walk wondering if they're offensive, or just even have to think of anything else but being great. All they got to do is show up and be great. And we're walking in with all of these preconceived notions that we're trying to prove wrong or trying to prove right. That's extraness, that's burden that we're walking with. So for me personally, I also think this is part of getting older. As you get older, you're just kind of like, I am what I am. But I talk how I talk normally on air. I now have enough confidence and I think experience. This comes with time too. I'm not going to say that at 16, you're going to know exactly how to do this. I certainly didn't. But I would say for me, it was more like late 20s where I started to really feel like I was finding my groove. But I feel like, at first it was just an expression of myself visually, right? So it was like, I wore my hair natural, curly. I wore braids. I wore protective styles that are traditional to Black women. I mean, this is naturally how I was wearing my hair anyway. I wore clothes that represented my lifestyle. I often even intentionally wore African Ankara, African clothes to show, my African heritage and my pride in that. And to allow that to be seen for young Black people on this big, bright stage, if I'm doing a national NBA game or interviewing LeBron James or Stephen Curry, there go my braids and African clothes right next to it. But, now I think the next steps for me as far as celebrating and exercising my Blackness is now the control over the stories I tell or who I'm interviewing or why I'm doing this. And I think I'll continue to find ways to subtly insert my perspective as a Black woman in my world, which is right now sports. So I'll give one example, and I like to give this example. I know I've shared this with some of the students Shaina works with, but one thing I'm proud of, the last playoffs before the NBA playoffs before the pandemic hit, it was the 76ers versus the Raptors, the series where Kawhi Leonard hit the four bounce buzzer beater, game 7 to end the series, sent Joel Embiid off the court crying. If you guys watch NBA basketball, it was, that was that series, and I'm the sideline reporter for it. And typically, the game is 2.5 hours long. My sideline role is, over the course of the game, maybe I spoke 10 minutes total. I've got these 45-second hits, but that's something that I own and control. And we have a few moments where we come on air and tell a story. And typically it's an injury report, or it's something about someone develops a part of their game, or there's a connection to someone else in the stands, those types of stories. I pitched to my producer that I recognize, this is my vantage point as a Black woman, as an African woman, that there are 2 star African players on the court in Joel Embiid and Pascal Siakam. And they're both from Cameroon. That is very rare if you think about the number of professional basketball players that come from Cameroon, but from Africa, period. The pipeline is just not that developed yet, although it's growing. So that's significant. And so I was able to tell this story about Pascal on the Raptors, Joel Embiid on the 76ers. I spoke to both of them about growing up in Cameroon. They're both from rival towns in Cameroon. Like, one is from Yaoundé, one is from Douala. And I think one of those cities, I forget now, but one of those is like the New York, and one of those cities is like the LA. And they were talking about the pride of seeing the 2 of them matched up on this court and what it meant, and how there was a rivalry, certainly, but there was so much love and respect that they were here as a prime part of this national and global stage. And, I told that story, first quarter, first time out. That was my hit. And that was something I can control. And we told an African story in front of, all the fans who are watching the NBA playoffs. And I'm not sure that story gets told if I'm not in that position, if I'm not, the sideline reporter there, if I didn't have an opportunity to have that representation in that role. And if not, it might've been a report on Joel Embiid's back stiffness. Instead, we got something more substantive that meant something to me. And that's an example of like celebrating and inserting my perspective as a Black woman, as an African woman in that particular example, into what I'm doing and doing it with pride.
Thank you, Roz and Edwidge, for emphasizing the importance of not compromising yourself and the values that you tie to your identity, and also the importance of taking opportunities to create your own story, create your own narrative. So we have time for maybe 1 or 2 student questions. We'll go through some of the questions that students submitted when they registered, and if we have time, we'll get to whatever is posted in the group chat. So the first question comes from Sophie. As a student attending Molloy and trying to educate themselves more about how to make everyone feel inclusive, what is one thing you would recommend a student do or act on to make not only Molloy, but every place they go to a very inclusive place? What are some books, media accounts, podcasts, movies, articles, etc. you would recommend to learn more about this topic?
Can you repeat that, Tanisha?
Sure. As a student attending Molloy and trying to educate themselves more about how to make everyone feel inclusive, what is one thing you would recommend a student do or act to make not only Molloy, but every place they go a very inclusive place? What are some books, media accounts, podcasts, movies, articles, etc. you would recommend to learn more about this topic?
I can start off. I'm not an academic, so I'll leave that to like Angelina and other people in terms of like books and movies you should read, but in terms of just things that you can do that are easy, I would say, just talk to different people, get out of your comfort zone. Don't just stay in, your little circle at Molloy and then that's it. And don't be weird about it. Like, don't just go up to people and just be like, hi, tell me about your culture. Like, it doesn't have to be weird. But, just open yourself up, listen to other people's experiences and don't discount them because it's not an experience that you don't understand or you haven't gone to. But I would definitely just say like, get out of your comfort zone, go talk to other people, listen to other people's experiences. Someone says something that bothered them. As Janelle was talking about earlier with, when she was on the softball team, people had made a certain joke about a nickname and she kind of just talked to them like, okay, that's not cool. Like, listen to that. Don't just kind of like write off something because you don't think it's that important. So I think those are some easy tips that you can do.
I'd love to give a response to that as well. I was kind of keying in onto the words that were mentioned in that question, and Sophie, I think she said she wants to feel like everyone to feel as if they're inclusive. How about everyone just is? It can be. It doesn't have to feel that way. It can just actually be inclusive by being authentic and being genuine with the way that you engage with people. So, like Shaina said, don't be weird and try to put yourself in situations or maybe ask things that you're not sure how to navigate. Just be genuine and ask real questions. I don't know, and I think also just doing the work. I don't have any books or things specific off the top of my head, but I will say just doing the research and asking the questions that, the question that you posed today to us here on the panel, and also internet. There's so many different ways that you can reach out and just do the work on your own. And I think it's just most important to just be authentic in your space and know that if you want people to feel included, they will, just by your genuine nature to want that to happen.
Thank you, Angie. To add to that, I gathered some authors while you guys were talking. If I were, well, I am a student, but if I were a high school student, I would do what I can with what I've got. I would say read as much as you can. And another source that I use, I YouTube videos. I YouTube conferences, panels that discuss diversity and inclusion. Now, be careful, what kind of panels that you choose, right? If there are no people of color on this panel, then that's the problem. But just some authors that you can look at: Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Alice Walker, Richard Wright. You can YouTube conversations. There's Ibram Kendi came out with a new book called 400 Souls, a community history of African America from 1619 to 2019, which also makes me think about the New York Times 1619 Project. If you haven't heard of that, look it up, do the research. I think it's important for individuals to also hold themselves accountable for the research that you do, and to not just bank on the person of color to just give you these sources. Do your own research. Damani, I think you had your hand up as well.
Just to respond to the question, I would say to you, make a concerted effort to learn about the cultures of other people and the cultural practices of other people that are important to them. And then it becomes kind of like a talking point. I can remember sitting in the locker room environment right around St. Patrick's Day, and my coworkers, I'm in the room with these all Irish guys, and they're, it's corned beef and hash, and all these Irish foods and soda bread and etc. So I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm looking around, and they're having a good time, and they're not really seeing me. And I was like, I'm happy that you guys are celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and his Christian missionary work in Ireland is so impressive. And when you consider the fact that he wasn't even Irish, it just makes it that much more impressive. And everyone just like heads came up, and they were like, what? Like, because they didn't know the background. Here you are, you're having the celebration, but you have no concept of who St. Patrick was or what he did. And so this opened up this whole kind of conversation, and people are Googling and, whatever, like, what is this guy talking about? So learn the cultures and the practices that are relevant and pertinent and important to people. And then that becomes a way to make a connection. And read The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois.
I love that plug, Damani. Do you think we have time for one more question, Darius? Yeah, okay. So our last question will be, this is from Anthony. What was your relationship with your fellow Black students while you were in school? How do you deal with subtle and blatant racism? What was your relationship with your fellow Black students while you were in school, and how do you deal with subtle and blatant racism?
I'll address that. So my relationship was fantastic. I mean, I think that something happens when you're a minority, just a little bit of you, there's a bonding together. Like, I know you know me, we know everybody. And so you just build like this community, which is very helpful and supportive. And although I was like at the time a star athlete and I was treated well and it was like a great experience for me, I did run into that a lot, like blatant, like N-word in your face, like, like, whoa, what is this? I addressed it. I think that, you know, all I can say is, one, you don't allow it to take you out of character where you act in a way that is just not acceptable. Although it can be hurtful at the time, but I think that you must just address it, you know. Like for instance, there was a particular faculty at the time, my brother who went to Molloy for a little bit, wasn't sitting at the table with most of the Black people sit, like the basketball players sit at one table. He was sitting next to me, I had to talk to him, and they said something like, "Oh, you're not at the prison table." Now you just stuck, like, did that just happen? Like, did that just, but what happens is he went to that person and sat down and said, "You said something that offended me." And sometimes just sometimes they're not, it might just kind of just flow out, and then you just let it go and you're respectful. You say, "Hey, that hurt my feelings." So for me, I found the best way to deal with it was that I just addressed it. "Hey, you said that offended me. This is the reason why." And it brings it to their attention that, like, you just need to do better. That's not okay.
Thank you, Janelle. I completely agree with you. And it's important to not be afraid to address it, not only when it's your peer, but when it's someone that you work for, when it's someone who's your senior. I know for me, you know, being in the classroom environment, I've had to address tenured professors and tell them, actually, this is wrong, your take on this, and you're questioning whether the Black tradition in this field is racist, and just telling them in a tactful way also is helpful. Do we have anyone else who wants to contribute?
Yeah.
I just want to kind of, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to jump into it. Also can be things that you don't even realize, like socially, like maybe you feel like, oh, you know, I'm not doing anything racist, but you're doing things socially that are making people uncomfortable. So like maybe you don't say the N-word at someone, but I've seen a lot of situations where like friends that I have felt that are not Black and have felt the need to say the N-word, or because it, and that's a bigger discussion on whether or not does it belong in, you know, our everyday culture and our music, and, you know, should even Black people be saying it? That's a different discussion. But what I'm saying is, even if you mean it to sing a song, or if you're just trying to be cool and you think this is light, this is a social situation, be cognizant of, like, you could be making someone uncomfortable. And if you are like me, you're someone who has been in the situation of being uncomfortable, I think I found that I've made the most progress, and I've had to talk with friends. One friend who was a best friend, like a really good friend, she's super cool. And it was very hard for me at first. I thought about not saying anything because I didn't want to ruin our relationship, but I was uncomfortable. So I gave her grace. I spoke my truth. I told the truth about how it made me feel, that I didn't like that, but I also allowed her, as opposed to making it an attack on her. I feel like we were able to get common ground, and she actually was very apologetic when I shared that made me uncomfortable, and I don't think she should use those words. And I think she took a lot of steps coming that way, as opposed to me just blowing her spot. Now, each situation deserves a different type of consideration, but when I'm trying to make leeway with somebody in a racist situation or in a sexist situation, I try to find the common ground first, and then find a way to get them to see things from my perspective. If the situation persists after that, you've given them that chance, then I think, you know, you go to a higher up, you get this documented, you keep a transaction of these things happening, and you take it very seriously, for, you know, like, as it escalates after that.
I wanted to say really quickly, Sue, so I was part of the first year of girls at Molloy. I came in 2000. That was the first year they went co-ed. So there were not a lot of people who looked like me, especially for my first 3 years there. I'm talking about, you can count the number of Black girls on like 2 hands. So for me, I mean, like Janelle was saying, we all got along because, you know the saying, we all we got. It was only like 10 of us anyway. So we gradually, like, you know, just kind of chilled together. But yeah, I have definitely personally dealt with some blatant and some microaggressions when it came to racism at Molloy. And I dealt with it. I would say back then, I don't think I had the right tools to deal with it in a way that I should have, because I was young. I'm like 15, 16. So for me, it was coming from a place of anger. Like, these are things that I've never dealt with before. So I would say for you all on here, you know, don't necessarily respond in an angry way. You have a right to be angry. You have every right to feel how you feel. But sometimes when you respond just like in a mad way and you're just coming straight to them, that makes people just kind of block off, and then they're not hearing you, right? So take a moment, breathe, and then come up, you know, as Janelle was saying, like, go to someone and be like, all right, like, this is why this is wrong. This is why I was offended. Also, I would definitely say use your resources at Molloy. I feel like right now Molloy is making a very concerted effort to work on these issues and to make sure that, you know, past issues that have happened are not happening anymore. And they're definitely trying to change the culture, and they can't change the culture if they don't know, right? So if you're only holding these things to yourself and you're not sharing them maybe with a teacher or a higher up, they don't know that it's an issue, and they can't change it. And if they don't know. So I'm not saying, like, you know, go out there, be a snitch or whatever, and just, like, you know, be the tattletale police, but there are ways that you can share it with higher up so they know that certain things need to be done to change the culture at school.
Very quickly, I want to piggyback on Shaina because I do think this is important. This is for the students and for the teachers at Molloy, and some of y'all, I see y'all in here. Hi, I miss you. But I think, and I've been a beneficiary of this. I have heard more of this as I've gotten older or been in conversations like this. The experience for Black athletes and Black students in most places is very different. And I would say I've heard this over and over, and I think it's true. Black athletes, while being Black is tough, you know, period, like, Black athletes tend to get to feel cool, get to be part of the coolest crowds. I will say that I have experienced this feeling of, I felt like I was always accepted by the popular table, or I guess I didn't feel all the time weird while, you know, about being Black, but probably also that had to do with I had social currency as a star basketball player, you know, and the same thing when I went to Stanford. I know for a fact, now speaking with a lot of my peers as adults, I know for a fact my experience as a Black student athlete at Stanford was way different than what a lot of the non-student athletes that were Black was there. You know, you're, especially on the men's side, you're a king, you're elevated, it's the thing to be, you know, you're a star. And so what the point I'll make here is for fellow students and for faculty to keep an extra eye and attention to those Black students who may not be in as visible positions as the athletes, because they're going through different types of experiences and walks as well.
Edwidge, thank you, Roz.
Yeah, I couldn't have really said it better. I mean, I was listening to all the comments, but essentially, you know, just to kind of piggyback all the great comments that were made about that, it's important to address it. That's number one. I think over time, I don't know if it's a good thing, but over time, from my own personal experience, that I'm able to deal with these kind of situations with better tact. So I understand as a young person, you know, in their teens, wanting to clap at somebody right away, for lack of a better term, is probably the first way, like, you know, out of instinct, etc. But it is important. I think the thing that I want to drive home the most, you know, is piggybacking on everybody else, but more so emphasizing that it is important to address, because I find that not only for us as adults, but as young people as well, when something happens like that, you do kind of sometimes like, is this really worth this time to address, or is it one of those blanket racism comments that I can kind of just be like, and we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't let really much slide when it comes to you being offended, especially in that manner. So we oftentimes, suppress our reactions so that we don't seem like the angry Black kid, like we don't seem like we've taken it out of context, or it was, a comment that wasn't really meant that way. But you know what, in order to, I think the most important, my most success with navigating those issues have been in my approach. Less of a combative, but definitely a more of coming from a, let's understand each other and let you understand that what you said wasn't appropriate and it was offensive. That allows for an open dialogue and more of a, empathetic feeling, as opposed to usually when you meet aggression, you're going to get aggression with it, so at times I think it's important to address sternly, go to your higher ups, etc. But that's the main important thing, is that you should address it, and we should really try not to be afraid about what the reaction is, because we're the ones that are offended. We should really try to put ourselves in a position where we're opening a dialogue so both sides can understand where they're coming from.
Thank you, Edwidge. So I'm going to wrap up the event with my own personal thank yous and then hand it over to Darius. I'm going to ask the panelists to stay back for 2 minutes. So I want to thank members of the D&I Council for organizing this event, especially the programming committee and the e-board, Yvette Villanueva and Vicky Higuera. I also want to give a special thank you to members of Molloy administration and staff, especially Principal Penikas and Joe Somo, for helping to make this event happen. Next, I want to thank our panelists, some of whom are zooming in from different time zones, for taking the time out of their work days to participate in this event. One of the caveats of Black excellence is having a packed schedule. So thank you for choosing to spend the afternoon with us and share your insights and answer questions. Lastly, I want to thank our attendees for choosing to spend the afternoon with us. We appreciate your support, and we expect this to be the first of more D&I programming events to come. Darius.
All right, well, thank you very much. Ms. McDonald is absolutely right. This is the first of many more events to come. I cannot thank the panel enough. I cannot thank Ms. McDonald, the D&I committee, the organizing wing of the board for putting this on. This was a tremendous, tremendous event. Really wonderful, wonderful information. It's exactly what we said it would be. We said it would be informational, thought-provoking, inspirational, check, check, and check. So really, thank you so much, everyone. And finally, thank you to all those faculty, and thank you all those students who attended. Your presence here means a tremendous amount. It starts it's the building block for more programming, more discussions like this, which are definitely sure to come in the future. So on behalf of everyone here at Molloy, Ms. Wiel put a LinkedIn profile up there in the chat box. But thank you, everyone. Have a great night. We will be giving out a survey for those of you who attended to give us any of your thoughts, and we'll use that in the future programming. So again, thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and as always, go Stanners.